Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it is another video in my 2023 offseason prediction series, and it's the Buffalo Bills. Make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video, leave your comments on the Bills in the comment section below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The Buffalo Bills are one hell of a case study. They have been phenomenal the last couple of years. Josh Allen really came into his own, and any concern about them losing Brian Daboll to the New York Giants head coaching position that affecting their offense really didn't miss anything. No strides really missed. They have the same sort of issues that they've always had that I think need to be addressed, but they really saw great improvements on the defensive side of the ball. Some of the younger players really started to step up. Some of those veterans like Von Miller really did a good job coming in, providing some leadership, providing some experience, and providing some real quality on the field play. But what's stopping them? What's stopping them from getting to that Super Bowl? What's getting them to underachieve so much? They've run in to the Chiefs and the Bengals in the last couple of playoff years where they've really been the favorites to go all the way to the final game and to be in the Super Bowl and perhaps even be the Super Bowl champions. I think they were the odds-on favorites this year at the beginning of the NFL season. So there's a lot of stuff going in there. And we're not going to talk about Damar Hamlin at all. So if you think that's what's going to happen, we're not doing it. We're going to stick to the regular scheduled programming of this series and the structure of it. And that means we're going to start with the head coaching position. So let's start with head coach Sean McDermott, who's really done one of the more impressive jobs as one of the more recent head coaches to enter the NFL over the last, I think it's like 5 or 6 years he's been there. I think it's been 5 or 6 years he's been there, but he's done a great job. He's done a fantastic job. He's one of these guys who's come in with a defensive background and has really done a great job delegating away some of the offensive responsibilities, really created some juggernaut candidates for coordinator jobs. Brian Daboll is the prime example of that. The reigning coach of the year just won it the other day. So how he builds with personnel and how he makes sure that he always has room available to improve at certain positions, cap management with that front office, has done quite well. And you look at some of these offensive numbers, and honestly, the only one that jumps out is the turnovers, but that is what comes when you have a player like Josh Allen, who is going to take a lot of chances, who has a big arm, who's going to try and fit balls into some tight windows. But with those deficiencies, specifically with the turnovers, you also then get those passing touchdowns being second in the league, the total touchdowns being fifth, third down percentage being first in the NFL, total yards fourth, total touchdowns fifth. You are in fantastic shape, and Josh Allen is one of those quarterbacks who can run the ball. That's why you get that number 9 in rush yards without having a real number 1 running back. They had Devin Singletary, who they're probably going to let go. They had James Cook, who they drafted, who didn't really perform that high of a level. They traded Zach Moss to get Naheem Hines, who really contributed okay, but did a lot of his contributing on the special team side of the ball. That's where he made a gigantic impact, really. We had those 2 kick returns for touchdowns in the same game against the Patriots. But, having these types of numbers but not having a true number 1 running back really does open up the possibilities for them come draft day to be super aggressive. And to somehow get something tangible in there to improve their offense. They can still add another receiver. They can still add a running back. They could add some offensive linemen as well, even though they're 8th in sacks, 9th in rush yards, 8th in pass yards. They still have a deficiency on their offensive line, specifically on the interior. So they somehow, some way, despite these offensive rankings, can drastically improve in this offseason on the offensive side of the ball. Then when you look at the defensive side of the ball, their numbers are even more impressive. They're top 10 in every category except for sacks, where they were 14th. And you can improve on that as you go on. Gregory Rousseau's coming into his own again. Ed Oliver, who you're going to likely extend, has been a tremendous interior defensive lineman, really has a well-rounded game now. Von Miller, of course, as always, is going to have an impact out there, and he's going to help some of these younger guys improve as well. Maybe you do go and look into another defensive end, because you got Carlos Basham there. Maybe AJ Epinesa is more of an interior guy. Gregory Rousseau is improving. You're hoping that that's going to be your number one long-term edge rusher after Von Miller sort of sees his way out. But kind of like the offensive side of the ball, they somehow have a lot of room for improvement in a couple of those position groups. And that's so rare. And I think that what that really comes down to is what this section is about. And that is Sean McDermott. That is how great of a coach he is. And how much they're going to improve is a real testimony to what he's able to do with perhaps not the most maximized talent roster, if that makes sense. Now, one of the issues they're going to have is the salary cap, $16.8 million over the cap, but they are in a great position where they don't necessarily have to bring back a lot of guys. They have some key free agents out there like Tremaine Edmonds, who just seems like even from the beginning of the year, it was his last year in Buffalo. He was sort of playing for how big his contract was going to be when he went to another team. And that's where I looked at a guy like Dane Jackson. I was like, okay, he's a restricted free agent. He's a good cornerback to have on this roster. It's a $2.6 million cap hit. I would take him with a restricted free agency tender. And then I'm looking at some of the restructures. Josh Allen, sort of restructure his deal, kick that can down the road on him. You're going to keep him forever anyway. $21.5 million in cap savings this year is quite important considering how much you're over it. And then Deion Dawkins and Matt Milano get you $6.5 million each. And I was looking at some cuts. Nyheim Hines. Having almost a $5 million cap hit is a lot for a guy who's not going to be your number one running back. For a guy who's going to be simply used situationally. A guy whose skill set, frankly, can be replaced in this upcoming draft with a much younger, better option. Like Bijan Robinson, like Jahmyr Gibbs. You can get so many different guys in there that can do really what Nyheim Hines, it would be long term. And so why not just free up that money, spend it somewhere else, get some depth at other positions, and maybe use some draft capital on a younger running back to get a more dynamic presence back there. Nothing against Nyheim Hines. It's just a big number to have for him. And then Isaiah McKenzie, $2.6 million. You're hoping to put Khalil Shakir sort of into his spot more often next season. So maybe freeing up that $2.6 million for now is a good idea. But Isaiah McKenzie, I think, is somebody who you could look at bringing back after the draft is sort of concluded and you've signed your draft picks and you've sort of figured out where you have cap space, and then being able to offer him a contract to come back if not another team picked him up. He might end up on somebody else's team throughout OTAs, but he could be somebody that could be poached, I think, in the summertime to bring back to the team. What this does is it opened up $23.7 million in spending cap, which I don't know that they're going to make a big free agency splash. I think they sort of did that last year with Von Miller. But you look at their needs running back, the interior offensive line, linebacker, safety. Maybe you figure out a way to bring back Tremaine Edmonds at a cheaper deal than what he's going to get somewhere else because he wants to stick around. I don't know that that's going to be necessarily the case. Someone probably is going to overpay him. And then you look at the running backs. Some of the top running backs, I'm expecting them to stick around with the teams that they're already on. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, guys like that. And the interior offensive line group, unless somebody gets cut, or maybe, Nate Davis is somebody you're looking to get into because perhaps he doesn't want to re-sign with Tennessee and they don't put the franchise tag on him. You're in weird territory where you don't maybe not necessarily need to spend money in free agency, and you can maybe look at some of the other guys that were maybe starters for you, like Jordan Poyer, like Tremaine Edmonds, guys like that, who maybe you can bring back on cheaper deals. But let's say you don't do that. Then you got two offensive linemen. I like Elijah Wilkinson, $2.2 million cap hit. Got a lot of reps this past season. And then Mike Edwards at $7 million. Bring him in on that. He just went to the Jets. He just went to the Jets from Tampa Bay as well. But we're going to get Mike Edwards $7 million. It's a little cheaper than Jordan Poyer's deal. And Mike Edwards is, of course, a little bit younger as well. So, you're sort of getting younger in that position. And it's still, because you have Micah Hyde as your other starter, it's still a need, because maybe at the end of this upcoming season, going into 2024, Micah Hyde will be the next one to leave. You're sort of working your way in and out of those older safety contracts that you had with Poyer and Micah Hyde, sort of moving on from them as they age out of the league, get younger there. So Mike Edwards could be a small part of that to make that transition maybe a little bit easier. So then in this upcoming draft, you can look into maybe Antonio Johnson, who could be a more long-term answer replacement for Micah Hyde, and Mike Edwards is sort of your replacement for Jordan Poyer. So when you have those signings, it's $14.5 million still in cap room. So it does open you up to maybe after the draft, you go and look at Nyheim Hines, you look at Isaiah McKenzie, like I said earlier, and look to bring them back maybe on cheaper deals with cheaper cap hits than what they had right now. I think especially Nyheim Hines. Maybe you can restructure his deal. You cut him, bring him back because there's no dead money to cutting him. So maybe you bring him back with this roster fill money in that second wave of free agency, and maybe a $2.5 to $3 million cap hit. So you end up saving $1.5 to $2 million on his contract this upcoming season. Maybe you could work something out like that, but I think 14.5 is a good number for them. And then just looking at what their draft strategy should be, for me, you take the best player on your board days 1 and day 2, and then worry about depth at certain positions where you feel you might need it on day 3. But those first 2-3 rounds, just get the best player on your board, because I think that no matter really what position that player is at, you can get an instant contributor. You can get somebody on the interior offensive line. You can get a running back. Maybe you get a receiver. Maybe you get an interior defensive lineman or a linebacker. There's so many possibilities for them, and I think that they can, like I said, they're in one of those positions where they could find some quality starters in this draft and quality contributors in this draft on those first 3 days. And then, the depth on day 3, I think that's pretty much straightforward. You can sort of look into the future of what your certain positions have contracts coming up and maybe work that into your day 3 strategy. And there it is, my predictions for the Buffalo Bills in this upcoming off season. Make sure to thumbs up this video if you haven't already. And you've made it this far, so why not do it? And subscribe if you haven't already, because you made it this far. So why not do it and watch all the other videos, and make sure you don't miss any of the future ones coming out on this channel. And leave your thoughts on the Buffalo Bills in the comment section below. What's stopping them? What's going on with them? Why can't they win the big one? I'll see you guys next time with another video.